it's been well established that under the Bush administration, the FACE Act was not really enforced.
Mm-hmm.
That's the act that was passed under the Clinton administration to protect women and reproductive rights doctors. Under Clinton, it was enforced pretty extensively. The violence was down. Under Bush, it wasn't. The violence went up. And it seemed, from reports I've read anyway, that the FBI and the Department of Justice basically let people off the hook or didn't even investigate them, like the man that shot Dr. Tiller.
Right.
We know for a fact that he committed acts against clinics that were just totally overlooked.
Yeah.
And the point I'm getting to is that when the Department of Justice enforces the laws that are on the books, which there are many laws that can be enforced here, FACE Act, RICO, Patriot, whatever, that the violence actually goes down.
Sure.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I want to put it in context. So let me give you an answer to this that might surprise you a little bit, given what I'm about to say about the FACE Act and so forth. I am, on moral principle, someone who does not believe abortion is a good thing. If it came to family and friends, I would talk anybody I could out of having an abortion. I don't believe in abortion. I got my girlfriend pregnant when I was 17. We had her. That's my daughter. I have 2 grandchildren by that daughter. I believe in life. I also believe abortion should remain legal because I think abortion is something that is going to be happening. It always has happened. It will happen. And that whatever you believe of Roe v. Wade, whether it was good or bad, that's the law of the land now. It's not going to be rolled back. The pro-life movement has just spent the last 35 years plus wasting their time and millions of dollars doing nothing but recruiting votes for the Republican Party. Roe was never rolled back. It was a very cynical ploy of both fundraising and also political engineering on the part of the Republicans and pro-life leaders. And so I think for the good of the moral argument about abortion, which is the only one that exists as far as I'm concerned, it's not a matter of the law, it's a matter of the heart, and to put forward what President Obama is talking about, which is to encourage people to have children when they're pregnant by providing aid to women, by helping their children through education, sex education, distribution of contraceptives, and all the rest of this. If those programs are to go forward, and if abortion and life and these other issues are to be argued as moral concerns, which is what I believe they are, then that's all the more reason why the FACE Act and other laws that prevent violence and conspiracy when it comes to killing abortion doctors, gunning people down who might be their assistants, vandalizing buildings, burning them, and so forth, need to be enforced. So even from the point of view of someone such as myself, who believes that abortion is something that is sad and tragic and should be avoided, who also believes it should remain legal, but nevertheless that alternatives should really be presented, which I believe is Barack Obama's position as well, from that point of view above all others, because you want people to be able to argue this from not only a sane position, but have some moral force to their argument. The types of things that lead toward killing people, burning buildings down, and so forth, need to be investigated and stopped, not just because of themselves, but because they completely delegitimize the argument for life and for treasuring individual human beings and the sanctity of life. They completely delegitimize these things. So the people who are serious about a, quote, pro-life point of view should be the first people, not the last, but the first people who are demanding that the Justice Department enforce FACE and these other laws and these other acts against people who are going to take violent action and illegal action against abortion providers. I think that the case of Dr. Tiller is really instructive, and that is the FBI knew that the person who killed Dr. Tiller had involved himself in illegal acts of gluing locks shut, vandalizing property, and they had done nothing about it. They had talked to him once, as I understand it, and then let him go, not followed it up, and I'll take that further. He had been involved with the local chapters there of various pro-life organizations such as Operation Rescue. And if my own experience in the pro-life movement back in the 70s and 80s is any indication, then I can say for sure that there were people in local pro-life organizations that knew exactly what he was doing. I'm not saying they knew he committed murder. My guess is they didn't. But they didn't blow the whistle knowing he was doing something. Now, if I was part of a moral crusade on whatever the issue was, and I had somebody in my group who was going to sully the reputation of what I stood for by burning a building down or whatever he did, or might do, I would be the first person who would be asking the local law enforcement authorities to do something about this person, because it would take my whole campaign down in the same way that as if you were an anti-war activist and you knew that there was one person who was carrying a handgun in their backpack to peace demonstrations who had vowed someday to shoot down a policeman and who meanwhile was gluing the lock shut of the National Guard office next door, and you knew that they were on their way to do something that was violent and difficult. You would want to blow the whistle for their good and for the good of the people they would harm. And so I think that the appeal has to be not just to the Justice Department, but to the pro-life and to the other conservative or right-wing organizations themselves, and say, look, if you keep going down this path and you keep harboring people like this, and you know they're doing these, quote, small illegal things, like gluing locks shut or throwing a firebomb through somebody's window, not that I consider that small, but whatever, it's up to you to blow the whistle. It's also up to the leaders to take some responsibility. People like Fox News have got to stop inciting violence. People like Dr. Dobson have to stop talking about America in post-apocalyptic terms that if you take them seriously, mean that you think you're in the middle of the apocalypse or Armageddon's on the way, as if somehow everything stands or falls by this idea of American exceptionalism, and if we are no longer a city set on a hill and a near theocracy, as the Bay State Puritans thought they were, that somehow God has quit blessing us and we're now part of the problem and the enemy. People have to take their words very seriously. And my fear is, of course, that when it comes to assassination and violent acts, that there will be more in the future. And I think the reason there will be more is because the inciters to violence on Fox News, the religious right, talk radio, and so forth, are in no way humbled or even thinking about, apparently, backing off their hate speech. You have people legitimately, for instance, in the gay movement, demanding rights and pushing their cause. You have a progressive black president in the White House, the first black president, so all the racism comes out. And when you put all that together, you're creating a climate in which if the respectable, quote-unquote, right-wing leaders won't back down and apologize for pushing things further than perhaps they meant to, if the Justice Department won't take action and treat our domestic terror problem with the same seriousness we treat the international problem of Islamic-inspired terrorism, because our domestic terrorism problem is embedded within the same movement that produces the Republican Party, just less than 6 steps of separation from some of its leaders, even when it comes to people like Sarah Palin and even Mike Huckabee with his ties to the pro-life movement, which themselves all have these fringes. I think we're going to have problems. So I think the challenge is challenge the Christian leadership in this country to take its own message seriously and to pull back from its message of hate. Challenge pro-life groups and other activists, agree or disagree, but who are not committed to violence, to begin to blow the whistle on people within their groups who individually they think may do harm or they know have broken laws. And challenge our Justice Department and other law enforcement agencies to take seriously what I believe is an emerging American domestic terror problem that is coming from a Christian, not Islamic, background, and treat it the same as you would as if these were radical Muslims doing these things. So had some guy in a long beard and a robe, hot out of a madrasa in Pakistan, strolled into the Holocaust Museum and gunned a guard down, or had he killed an abortion doctor, and it's found that he had had a note on his dashboard of the phone number for the local organizers of a group such as Operation Rescue, they would have been investigated.